At 9:30 p.m., on a fog-choked Michigan road, a 23-year-old mother of four walked barefoot into darkness, and that moment would become the last confirmed sighting of Brittany Nicole Shank. What started as a simple car crash spiraled into a mystery filled with fear, confusion, and unanswered screams for help. And what happened next changed everything. Brittany wasn't running from police. She wasn't hiding. She was trying to survive. Earlier that night, she borrowed her boyfriend's car, driving through the 33,000 block of Fawn River Road when dense fog swallowed the pavement. The car veered off. Glass shattered. Silence followed. But the real nightmare began after she crawled out. Witnesses would later say they saw Brittany wandering house to house. No shoes, no coat, bleeding feet, eyes wide with panic. She knocked. She begged. She looked terrified. And that's where things got darker. Cell records show Brittany desperately tried calling her grandmother. She tried calling police. Over and over. None of the calls connected. One resident finally answered his door. Somewhere between fear and fog, the case fractured. And this is where the investigation took a turn no one saw coming. After fleeing into the night, Brittany vanished into the dense fog, her bare feet bleeding on frost-bitten gravel. Neighbors reported glimpses, a flash of red and black hair, frantic movements. But every time someone tried to approach, she darted away. But what they didn't know was that the fog was hiding more than just a confused young woman. It was hiding a nightmare nobody could yet imagine. Earlier that evening, Brittany had been accompanied by a man in his 20s, short blonde hair, mutton chop sideburns, around 5 feet 6 inches to 5 feet 8 inches. His presence remains a haunting mystery. Witnesses never confirmed if he stayed or left before the crash, and police could not verify his involvement. And that's where things got darker. Every lead seemed to vanish along with her, leaving only questions that pierced her family's hearts. Brittany's chaotic personal life complicated everything, and the case turned into a chilling puzzle of fear, desperation, and unanswered cries. And this is where the investigation took its first real twist. Law enforcement faced a young mother, alone, terrified, with her last footsteps swallowed by the night. By sunrise, the fog lifted, but Brittany was still missing. Police began combing the area near the crash site, expecting footprints, blood, torn clothing, anything. Instead, they found almost nothing. No trail, no body, no clear direction of travel. And that absence became the most disturbing clue of all. Investigators focused first on the wrecked vehicle. The damage confirmed a single-car crash, not a chase, not an attack. Inside were Brittany's belongings, undisturbed. Her phone was gone. Her purse remained. And that's where things got. Others suggested she was picked up by a stranger or by someone she knew. But there were no confirmed sightings of any vehicle. As days passed, hope thinned. Media attention faded. Leads dried up. And Brittany's family was left staring at the same unanswered question. How does a young mother simply vanish from a road surrounded by witnesses? Whatever happened after she ran into that fog wasn't accidental. And the next discovery would push the case into far darker territory. Days turned into weeks, and investigators widened the circle around Brittany Nicole Shank, turning suspicion toward the people closest to her. Boyfriends, ex-husbands, friends with criminal histories. Everyone was questioned. And this is where things got darker. No one could provide a clear timeline of Brittany's final hours, because no one truly knew her movements. Her relationships had been volatile. Multiple marriages, constant breakups, sudden reconciliations. She moved fast, trusted easily, and often surrounded herself with men known for drugs or bar violence. But what they didn't know was whether one of those men had been waiting for the perfect moment. Police interviewed her boyfriend, the owner of the crashed car. He denied involvement and claimed Brittany left alone. His story couldn't be disproven, but it couldn't be confirmed either. And the truth was far more disturbing. There was no evidence tying anyone directly to the scene after she fled. Searches intensified. Volunteers scanned woods, rivers, abandoned buildings. Helicopters circled overhead. Cadaver dogs alerted in multiple locations, but every hit collapsed into nothing. Each false lead raised hope, then crushed it. And that's where the investigation stalled. Brittany's mother refused to let the case die. She organized searches, pushed media, contacted anyone who would listen. Every night ended the same. No answers, no calls, no closure. Years passed, and Brittany wasn't found dead, But she wasn't found alive either. As attention faded, a podcast began asking questions law enforcement never fully answered, and that would drag Brittany's story back into the light. Soon, the investigation would awaken with unexpected consequences. Years after the crash, Brittany's case was quietly fading when a new voice forced it back into the spotlight. The Hide and Seek podcast, hosted by James Basinger, reopened every detail with ruthless precision. And this is where the case took a turn investigators never expected. Basinger questioned the earliest assumptions. Why did Brittany flee from help? Why did her phone die at the exact moment she vanished? Why were there no footprints leading away? But what they didn't know was that buried inside the timeline were contradictions no one had confronted. The podcast uncovered how Brittany constantly reinvented herself online, running multiple social media accounts, changing names, changing circles. That chaos wasn't just personal, it fractured the investigation. And the truth was far more disturbing. Police couldn't even confirm who Brittany trusted during her final weeks. Listeners flooded in tips. Some claimed to have seen Brittany after the crash. Others named men previously overlooked. A few accused law enforcement of missing something obvious. Someone had watched her run. And whatever happened after she disappeared into the fog was no longer just a mystery. It was a challenge waiting to be exposed. The truth would soon surface. As Michigan State Police reopened files, analysts rebuilt Brittany's final night minute by minute. Fog density, crash timing, witness distances, phone failures. And that's where things got darker. The timeline revealed gaps wide enough for something violent to slip through unnoticed. The green army jacket became a focal point. One witness said he gave it to Brittany moments before she ran. But the jacket was never recovered. No fibers. No sightings. And the truth was far more disturbing. If Brittany kept running, the jacket should have turned up somewhere. It never did. Investigators scrutinized the phone data again. Calls failed, but the phone still existed until it didn't. No pings. No shutdown record. Just silence. Every year without resolution sharpened the same question. Who benefited from her silence? The case sat at a crossroads. Either Brittany succumbed to the elements in a way no one could explain, or someone made sure she would never be found. And what happened next would decide which truth investigators were finally willing to face. With no body and no crime scene, Brittany's case slipped into cold case territory, but the theories only grew more violent. Investigators began leaning toward one unsettling conclusion. If Brittany wasn't found, someone had ensured she wouldn't be. And that's where things got darker. Re-examined witness statements revealed a chilling pattern. Several neighbors independently said Brittany looked over her shoulder while knocking on doors, as if she feared someone nearby. That detail had been minimized early on. But what they didn't know then was how crucial it would become years later. Law enforcement explored the possibility of a pickup, someone offering help, or forcing her into a vehicle. Fog would have concealed headlights. Engine noise would have been swallowed by distance. And the truth was far more disturbing. In those conditions, an abduction could happen in seconds without leaving a trace. Attention shifted back to Brittany's relationships. Former partners were re-interviewed. Old arguments resurfaced. Then a disturbing realization emerged. Brittany hadn't accessed her bank accounts, benefits, or identity since that night. No digital footprint. No survival trail. And this is where the case took another turn. Statistically, voluntary disappearance collapsed as a theory. If Brittany was alive, she'd left no trace for years. If she was dead, someone had succeeded in hiding everything. The investigation was now cornered by one brutal truth. Accidents don't erase people this completely. And the next development would force authorities to confront that reality head-on. Pressure mounted as renewed attention forced investigators to reconsider the unthinkable. If Brittany was taken, the window for recovery had closed long ago. And that's where things got darker. The case pivoted toward homicide without a body, the hardest path any investigation can take. Cold case specialists audited every inch of the crash corridor. Soil samples were logged. Drainage culverts inspected. Private properties researched with warrants. Nothing surfaced. But what they didn't know was whether evidence had been removed the very night she vanished. Analysts reconstructed possible routes a vehicle could take within seconds of the witness call. Fog maps showed visibility collapsing to yards. A stop, a door opening, a scream muffled, then gone. And the truth was far more disturbing. Timing made intervention possible before police ever arrived. Attention turned to inconsistencies. The jacket witness's timeline shifted slightly. It was who made sure she never came back. And with that shift, investigators prepared for a final strategy, one that would rely on pressure, not proof, to break a silence that had lasted far too long. Next move would test loyalties, patience, and limits of memory itself. As investigators prepared their final push, silence became the loudest clue. People who once talked freely suddenly hesitated. And that's where things got darker. Someone, somewhere, was afraid of saying the wrong thing. Detectives began applying strategic pressure. They revisited witnesses not for answers, but for reactions. Subtle inconsistencies were confronted. Timelines tightened. And what happened next changed everything. One individual altered their story just enough to raise alarms, yet not enough to charge. The focus narrowed to a small cluster of men from Brittany's orbit, volatile relationships marked by drugs, jealousy, and control. Investigators believed Brittany may have recognized danger moments before the crash, triggering her desperate flight. But what they didn't know was whether the crash itself was coincidence or catalyst. Rumors surfaced of late-night confessions, and as the case approached another anniversary, one final question remained. Was the truth buried in the ground, or locked inside someone's memory, waiting for fear to fade? The answer still matters because silence protects someone, and time has never erased guilt, only delayed justice, leaving a family suspended between grief, hope, and the unbearable weight of not knowing why. Years later, the case remains open, unfinished, and painfully alive. Files sit waiting, phones stay on, and detectives still believe one moment could change everything. And that's where things got darker, because the longer silence lasts, the harder truth becomes to surface. Brittany's story ends without a courtroom, without a verdict, without a grave. Her children grew up with birthdays missing one voice. Her mother keeps the same promise, repeating it like a vow, refusing to let memory fade into statistics. But what they didn't know that night was how completely one foggy road would erase certainty. Investigators admit privately that answers likely exist. Someone saw more. Someone heard something. Someone remembers a detail that never felt important until now. And the truth was far more disturbing. Cases like this don't end because mysteries resolve. They end because people stop talking. Every year that passes sharpens the same appeal. If you were there, if you drove those roads, if you helped her, or hurt her, or watched her run. And this is where the case still waits, balanced on a single decision. Justice doesn't always arrive with sirens. Until then, the investigation stands unfinished, urging viewers to remember her name, share her story, and understand that one choice to speak could finally end the silence and bring long-delayed accountability for everyone still waiting tonight.